Okay, what's up, folks? Monday, September 12th, 2016. Rich Van Tassel here with you. I'm going to give you a little Monday take, I guess. Monday morning quarterback action, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if I'll do this every week, but I'm sure there'll be a big story, so we'll put this in now. And obviously, we're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys today. We know I'm a Cowboy fan. There's a lot to discuss with that game yesterday with the Giants. First and foremost, the situation with Terrence Williams. I didn't think originally that he could have gotten out of bounds. I still don't think that it was a guarantee he would have gotten out of bounds in that situation. But to look at it, I think Cromartie would have gotten him before he got out of bounds. If that was the case, there would just be so much more criticism because frankly what should have happened was when there were 17 seconds left, they were at their own, what was it, 45 46, the Cowboys. You've got to go downfield there. You can get 20 yards, give yourself a shot. Certainly, I mean, 20 yards in that situation would be a 50-yard field goal. 15 to 20 yards, you're in range, even a little less. 17 seconds is right at the cusp nowadays, especially. You have plenty of time to get up and get the ball spiked if you get in the middle. That was what the problem was. Whether or not Terrence Williams got out of bounds, which I don't think he could have, he could have turned it upfield and then tried to get out of bounds, but that is what it is. Even had he gotten out of bounds there, you're still looking at like a 65-yard field goal. As good as Dan Bailey is, and frankly, I don't think Dan Bailey is this, healer or whatever. I mean, I don't want to use the term, second coming, whatever. I don't like using those terms, but I mean, Dan Bailey's accurate, yes. I've seen Dan Bailey miss plenty of big field goals, though, in his time. And any kicker from, 60-plus yards. I'm not relying on a 60-yard field goal. Personally, I think Gostowski's the best kicker in the league. But let's get past that. He goes out of bounds. It's at the 46. Whatever. Maybe you have a chance to run another play, get it close. Who knows? I think the big thing was him giving himself up after he turned it upfield. Then he's got to try to get out of bounds at that point. With 12 seconds left when the play started, he had no chance if he didn't get out of bounds. But the biggest issue with the Cowboys, and we talked about this with Dak Prescott in the preseason when I was doing a profile on him. I talked about this at length last season when they didn't have Tony Romo. They were going with Brandon Weeden and then Matt Castle. You have to still try to run the offense. They were not trying to get Des Bryant involved. And give Janoris Jenkins a lot of credit. Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. I think Jenkins had him most of the time, but I know Cromartie broke up a pass in the end zone. These are both very good corners. I've always been high on Janoris Jenkins and Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. They played very well, but you still have to go to Des Bryant. And the Cowboys get, they're just so, I want to say old school, but old school can work. They're so just warped in their thinking that, oh well, we don't have Romo, we're going to completely abandon the offense, this, that, and the other thing. Ezekiel Elliott was not having a good game. There were some things that concerned me with Ezekiel Elliott, but when you're not throwing the ball like the Cowboys were not able to do in that game, what do you think the Giants are going to do? They're going to stack the box. Their linebackers aren't great, so they're going to cheat there, of course. And, when you have solid corners, that's what they're going to do in the first place. You have to try to soften up the defense. And it's just, let's go back to the end of, the 2013 season. Tony Romo missed that last game. Since that point, that was a loss, of course, on the last game of the season. They're, 1-15 now without Tony Romo? They lost that game that year. That's 0-1. Then they lost at least one the following year when they had the 12-4 season. It was against Arizona. Maybe there was another game, but I think that was it. So that's 0-2. Last year without him, they went 1-11. So that's 1-13. Now they're 1-14 without Tony Romo in that time. Now what I find people, first off, like I've said about Tony Romo, let's get this out of the way. Tony Romo is a capable quarterback. He's very good. He makes good plays at times, but he certainly makes his mistakes. If you want to be the Giants fan looking at me, yes, Eli Manning is the better quarterback than Tony Romo, okay? Certainly Tony Romo is good, though. We've seen, the win percentage with him as opposed to the win percentage without him. And most of those wins came in the 2010 season when Jason Garrett first took over. They're 7-22 or something without him now, and he was 5-3, I guess, when he took over that time. Wade Phillips wasn't too good with them, but remember that team was playing bad at first in that season. but he went like 2-2 in 2008 without Tony Romo. So we've seen at times they've been able to get the job done without him, but certainly in recent memory they can't. But they're getting very conservative, very traditional. They're not trying anything. And you got to look at the way they're losing these games. They're not getting blown out. I mean, yesterday was a 1 point game. How many one possession losses did they have last year? They had the 2 overtime losses to the Saints and to the Philadelphia Eagles. Those are one possessions. That game in New York against last year, if I remember correctly, it was still a one possession game. A lot of things happened that you can't necessarily put on the head coach to the fullest extent. There was a kick return, this, that, and the other thing. The Seattle game was a one possession game. They might have lost by 1 point in that game. You're losing all these games, by a couple points. I'm not looking at this as moral victories or anything. I'm looking at it as a fact that you're in these games, you're not finding a way to win. You're keeping it close enough, and you're losing the game anyway. I mean, at this point, what does it hurt? You, like last year when everything's spiraling out of control, you're still going to say, oh, we're going to be conservative, we're going to be conservative, we're going to be conservative as we lose 7 straight games. We keep losing. This game, you keep losing. You're in the games and you're going to lose. I mean, to me, what is the difference if you're going to lose by 1 point or if you're going to lose by 25 points? At this point, you've seen what's going on without Tony Romo. You're going to be competitive, you're going to be in the game, and you're not going to find a way to win. And why? Because you're refusing to open things up. You're refusing to take any chances. An onside kick or whatever, fake punt, anything. And that's on top of what they're doing with the offense. The biggest issue with this team is the offense is not taking and risk is a bad term. I don't consider it a risk. Okay, if you throw the ball 35 yards downfield or whatever, or 40 yards downfield, and it's intercepted, assuming it's a jump ball, and whoever it is, let's just say Des Bryant, Terrence Williams, not more of the jump ball guy, but you assume the guy can make the tackle right away. Okay, yeah, it's an interception that was thrown 40 yards down the field. How much do you usually net on a punt? 50, 55 yards. Okay, so you're losing 15 yards as opposed to a punt. Like deep downfield interceptions on jump balls are not killers in this league. The turnovers that kill you are when you have big drives and you turn it over in the red zone, or obviously if you turn it over in your end of the field, those are going to kill you every time. Going downfield for a jump ball to Des Bryant, where chances are he'll actually probably catch it. But even if it's intercepted, you don't lose much. It's not going to kill you, and they're just not doing these things. Jason Garrett has got to, and I saw Skip Bayless talking on his show. Whatever, you want to take, Skip Bayless with a grain of salt, whatever. Certainly, I think he, is crazy in most things. But he was talking about how, get Des Bryant a quick screen, let him break a couple tackles. I was at a game, the final game of 2014. He caught a quick screen, beat the corner, and took it down like 75 yards for a touchdown. Is that going to happen all the time? No, I'm not saying it is, but he's certainly got the capability of it. Put Des Bryant back on a punt return. Just do anything to shake things up. It's like the Cowboys, at this point, they're looking at it and they're like, well, we just want to be competitive. We're okay losing by 1. What is the difference? To me, there's no difference between losing by 1 or losing by 25. Frankly, I'd rather you lose by 15 points, running an offense, taking some chances, and actually doing things differently. And I love the things like fake punts. I love onside kicks. I talked about it. I love Jack Del Rio going for the 2-point conversion yesterday. I mean, you'll never see Jason Garrett do any of that, of course. But I love things like that. And maybe we'll even talk about Del Rio. I don't know. But that is what it is. That's a separate issue. To me, it just simply comes down to they're so content. And Ezekiel Elliott, like we talked about, I don't think he can't play. First off, I don't know why they continue to run those stretch plays. I run it right. I run it to the right side with Zach Martin and Travis Frederick and Doug Free for all the problems he has in pass protecting. He's a pretty good run blocker. And there was another thing. They were just refusing to help Doug Free. Towards the end of the game, he's getting killed by Jason Pierre-Paul, and they're not helping him. Why? What sense does it make? The rest of your line should be able to hold off to everyone and be able to take care of that. So you don't want to help Doug Free or whatever. On the defensive side of the ball, blitz, already, do anything to shake it up. It's just amazing to me how this team is content losing by 1 game because to want to do things the standard traditional way. And furthermore, Jason Garrett, look, I don't think Jason Garrett should have been the coach in the first place. Wade Phillips never got the benefit of any of these doubts. And I love the old argument, oh, well, Wade Phillips was a good defensive coordinator. No, Wade Phillips was a pretty damn good head coach. Okay, he was 33-15 until that disaster took place in 2010 with the Cowboys. Had a winning record in Buffalo, went to the playoffs. Yeah, he didn't win a playoff game. Of course, the Music City Miracle was part of it. Was a solid coach in Denver, over 503 destinations. But let's say he is just a good defensive coordinator. Okay, then what is Jason Garrett? At best, he was a good offensive coordinator, and frankly, at best, one of those times was in the first year when he came over, Wade Phillips' first year, when they had Terrell Owens, and him and Tony Romo just went nuts. He hasn't done anything since then, and he has no reason to. Ron Rivera a couple years ago, when he was about ready to get fired, he finally shook things up, and that's when Carolina really started to become a very good team. At this point, I don't. It is what it is. The Cowboys are simply content in not. They'd rather lose the conventional way than do anything to try to win. And they go to Washington next week. Let's see what happens. Let's see if they try to pick it up. I wouldn't expect it, and I would say expect another brutal, close loss by the Dallas Cowboys. And they'll be 0-2 in the division. But who knows? Maybe it'll finally get through their heads, and they'll shake things up. You want to blame Jerry Jones for this? Fine. Yes, he did hire Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett shouldn't have the job anymore. That is what it is. But, Jason Garrett and Rob Marinelli are the one calling these plays here. Scott Linehan on the offensive end, I think at the behest of Jason Garrett. So that's my take for the Cowboys right now. Let's see what happens moving forward. But, you got to look at it as what it is. Jason Garrett is killing this team on the offensive end. We'll see you later.